Three of the men convicted of killing Ahmaud Arbery in a state trial have now been found guilty on federal hate crimes charges. Joining us to discuss the guilty verdict is Dr. and Pastor Jamal Bryant of New Birth Missionary Baptist Church right here in Atlanta to get his insight and his take on what transpired down in Brunswick. Dr. Bryant, first of all, I know you've had a relationship with Ahmaud Arbery's mom and become close with the family. What was your reaction today when you heard the verdict?
I was really somewhat around Charles Dickens, the best of times and worst of times. This is Black History Month because this is the very first time we have had federal charges to hang and stick all the way through conviction for hate crimes. We've seen it in all other communities but ours. And so I think this is a progressive step forward in the right direction. Kudos to the Justice Department, but it's been a long time coming.
Absolutely. I mean, and I think we'd be remiss in our duty as outside observers if we didn't go back to the mere fact that this almost didn't happen. This prosecution, these two trials almost didn't happen. And but for the video being shared, it may not have happened. How frustrating is that for us as a community?
It's been continuous. So don't forget, George Floyd would have never come to bear if it wasn't for a high schooler who was armed with her video camera. The late great son of Georgia, John Lewis, said that our most powerful weapon is our vote. I want to undergird that and say our second most powerful weapon has been our cell phone, that we have been able to capture these egregious atrocities that have been happening from time immemorial. But the difference from that generation and this one is Android and iPhone. And so I'm grateful that we're doing more than texting and tweeting and TikToking, but we're capturing where it is America has room for improvement.
Yeah, Dr. Bryant, talk to me a little bit about what you plan to tell your congregation. You've got an enormous following over there, very loyal. And what will your message be as you go forward and we deal with these incredibly difficult times as men, as fathers, as protectors in the community? Talk a little bit about how we should be carrying ourselves and the things that we need to do to make sure that our community is safe. I mean,
Yeah.
I saw a tweet today that just talked about, there is no justice until Black men can walk wherever they please, can jog wherever they please. I mean, jogging while Black should not be a thing.
Yeah. I think what rings and echoes in my own spirit is the stanza from James Weldon Johnson: let us march on until victory is won. And so for that, we've got to really reimagine what is our role in this tick of the watch of history, that we've got to address the suppression of voting, what that means, that in the words of Attorney Benjamin Crump, we got to make sure we show up for jury duty, that we cannot just vote at the top of the ticket for the president, the governor, and the mayor, but who's on the school board, who's in the city council, who is our sheriff. All of those elected officials matter. I am now in full-blown midlife crisis because I grew up in the era where we used to have civics class,
Yeah.
which is no longer being taught, so that our young people understand what are the different chambers and tiers of our governmental structure so that we know how it is that we strategize to move forward.
Yeah, it's incredibly difficult to see where we're going now. You talk about the jury selection process, and going back to the first trial, we were extremely nervous, and there was a lot of scrutiny given to that jury selection because you had 11 whites, one African American in a community that was predominantly African American. So is it merely just awareness that helps us remedy that problem, or is it another indictment of the system?
The Reverend Jesse Lewis Jackson Sr. often said, we never lost a fight we've shown up to. And the problem with us is many of us have hung up our gloves and think that the fight is over. We have resigned after the election of President Obama twice, the false mythology curated by Disney that we were in a post-racial society. But we've got more hate crimes than ever, more hate groups than ever, more hate speech than ever. And Dr. King said, I choose love because hate is too great of a burden to bear. And so we've got to understand that tough love is what is needed and necessary in these times.
Yeah, we continue to see these hashtags popping up. We're dealing with the judge that wept for the police officer that she had to sentence up in
Yeah.
Minneapolis. Pastor, who is crying for our young Black men and women that are dying needlessly, being sentenced to death for air fresheners and questionable tags?
I think the ancestors are crying, thinking that we would have gotten past this in 22, that we still are being stalked by the ever present reality of a dream that is now a nightmare, that we're still judged based off of the color of our skin rather than the content of our character, that we're still being racially profiled, that we still are finding ourselves at the battering ram of what is the funding that takes place in the state of Georgia, that more is for incarceration than there is for education. And so I think we've got a whole new revitalization that needs to take place. That's not about roads and buildings, but it's about condition of the heart and the mind.
Yeah, and Pastor, where do you think the anger comes from when we talk about uh, a system like the prison system, where we understand that African Americans are incarcerated at 5 times the rate of their white counterparts? Why are people angry that we're pointing that out? I mean, the 1619 Project did a masterful job in laying out our history, not to be critical of white America, but to figure out a way to better educate our youth in the next generation. But it seemed to have elicited so much anger. Where does that anger come from in our society today?
There's somewhere between the book, The New Jim Crow, and Black Robes, White Justice.
Mhm.
We understand that the criminal justice system is the new plantation, that they are more under surveillance by the criminal justice system today than they were in slavery in yesteryear. And so I think we've got to take a hard look at the mirror and not just look out the window. We see the injustice in the Ukraine, but refuse to see it right in the United States. And so I pray that we don't declare war on ourselves, but that we will sanction whoever are purveyors of hate and segregation and really don't want to see change happen. I'm talking to you from Arizona, where there are those who are now about to take to the street asking for the Super Bowl to be shifted from being here because the NFL will not acquiesce to hiring Black coaches or making space for Black owners. Arizona is the same place, which was the last state in the union to move for Dr. King to have a holiday. And so we've got a whole lot of work to do. And it can't just be left to the NAACP and the Urban League and Rainbow Push and National Action Network, but all of us have got to roll up our sleeves and do the heavy lifting.
Absolutely, absolutely. Before I let you go, the lasting legacy of Wanda Cooper Jones and Ahmaud Arbery and the struggle their family has been through is what can we take away besides her incredible perseverance?
The power of not giving up. Sabrina Fulton, the mother of Trayvon Martin, said to the mother of Ahmaud Arbery, you are now in a sorority nobody wants to join, of mothers whose sons have been killed, but still press forward. And so I hope that the legacy is that we lived in an age and in an hour where Black mothers refused to throw in the towel until they saw justice for their children.
Pastor Dr. Jamal Bryant from New Birth Missionary, thank you so much for lending us your time today. We certainly appreciate your insight and perspective in these difficult times, in these difficult days as we push forward.
I'm grateful to be a part. Thank you for having me.
Absolutely.